Hi, everyone. This is NLIHC's Tenant Talk Live, the monthly working group call for low-income residents and low-income resident leaders. Tonight, we're going to be joined by the National Alliance of HUD Tenants, otherwise known as NAHT. We have Michael Kane, Geraldine Collins. Michael Kane is the executive director of NAHT. I'm going to say that, sorry, Michael. Geraldine is the president of the board for NAHT. And Shalonda Rivers, who is a board member of NLIHC, is also a board member of NAHT as well. We're waiting on one more speaker, Tara Madison. She is the board vice president for the North region. So she should be joining soon. So while we wait for her, I wanted to point everyone's attention. Hey, Tori.
Hey, hey, Michael. Hey, Jerry. Thanks for joining us. Sorry, I just wanted to say hi.
Okay.
I wanted to point everyone. Oh,
I think, I'm sorry. I think Tara said she's connecting now. She was having some issues.
I don't see her name. No, thank you. Oh, she's on, but she's an attendee here. I'll make her a panelist. Tara, I've just made you a panelist. So you should be, yep, okay. So yeah, I would love if everyone could put in the chat where you're calling in from. I also wanted to let everyone know that we have a poll at the bottom. It says polls at the bottom of your screen. And it's just a quick, I want to do a quick survey to see what type of housing people lived in, since NAHT covers mostly project-based rental assistance, right, Michael? That's
project-based, project-based Section 8.
Project-based Section 8.
And HUD mortgages.
Yeah, and so we just wanted to see where attendees, what type of housing they lived in, just to get a sense of that. Also, just something we might do going forward in case we get new people. And we'd love to see what type of housing people are calling in from, so we know what to talk about. So yeah, if you could put in the chat where you're from and then also answer the poll, that'd be great. So we have Nativi Dodds Seafield from Park Plaza Cooperative in Minnesota. Celeste from Cabarrus County, a fellow Tar Heel. Hello, Celeste. Bea Ware from San Juan, Puerto Rico. Karen Shaw from Somerset, Pennsylvania. We have Israel Ortega from Las Vegas, Nevada. Tawana Peterson from Harrisburg. Natavi Dodd said we are a resident-owned community of manufactured housing. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Tara, hello, from HUD Multifamily in Chicago. Charles Clark from Philly. AJ Jelks from Wisconsin. Patricia Washington from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Lynn Soderstrom from Minnesota. Lynn, you said you can't see the polls. Try and figure that out. Christina from Syracuse, New York. Zach Rowe from Detroit, Michigan. Joseph Lundy from Virginia Beach. He's in multifamily housing. Andrea from Syracuse, New York. Irma from Waukegan, Wisconsin. Lynn is in a Section 8 voucher department. Cindy Garcia from New York. Esther Malcolm from Monterey. Hi, Esther. Paul Keeley from Arlington, our NLIHC COO. Okay. So yeah, if you can, please just enter your answers into the poll. Oh, I have to launch the poll. That's right. Sorry about that. So yeah, the poll has been launched, so you should be able to see it at the bottom of the screen now, and you can answer it. And we can talk about those results maybe later in the broadcast. So Michael, I'll hand it over to you and your folks if you want to go ahead and get started. Oh, I should say what we're going to talk about tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about engaging with newly elected officials since it's January and a new Congress will be sworn in at the end of this month and a new president as well. We wanted to get you all thinking about ways that you can get in early, not just with federal members of Congress. Obviously, that's our focus at NLIHC, but any and all elected officials or government officials that have jurisdiction over the housing that you live in or other things like that. So Michael Kane and Tara and Geraldine and Shalonda are going to talk about some of the work they've done in the past and what they plan to do this year to engage with elected officials, particularly on housing, obviously. So Michael, I'll let you take it away.
Actually, Jerry is going to
okay.
lead our team.
Thank you, Kyle, for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the National Alliance of HUD Tenants. We thank the National Income Housing Coalition for inviting us this evening. I'm Geraldine Collins, and I'm the president of the National Alliance of HUD Tenets. And just to give you a short overview of the National Alliance of HUD Tenets, we were founded in 1992. We are a multicultural, all tenant ran board. And we are the only national tenant membership union in the US today. Our membership consists of voting member groups, and we elect a board each year. And those voting member groups elects the board. Now, and we have associate members, local organizing groups in different states. And that is comprised of associate members also, and board leaders that has a bi-weekly call every other week on our conference line. And if anyone after the call would like to join this bi-weekly call, just put your name in the chat and we will put you on our listserv. Now, we've been meeting bi-weekly since 1995. And what we do is we give information on these bi-weekly calls about training, and tenants would raise issues. And we try to help tenants in different states because, you know, all of us, even though if you live in public housing and project-based Section 8 housing, we have similar problems that's going on. So when people raise issues, we try to help them. So we're going to move on to our past engagement with HUD. Some of our past engagement with HUD is that we had an eyes and ears several years. The last eyes and ears we've had, and the eyes and ears consist of, there's situations that you cannot deal with at the local level and they cannot solve it. So we take it to the national level and we meet with these HUD representatives on at least a 2 or 3 month basis to try to figure out how we can help the tenants. And the last Eyes and Ears was held here in New York City in 2015, where we had the HUD officials come from Washington to New York City. And that went over very well because we had different tenant associations that attended with problems that they were having here at the regional office that was not taken care of. And the HUD officials, they came and we saw immediate results. So we want to continue that throughout the year for 2021. Now, we also meet with the HUD DAS, that's the Deputy Assistant Secretary. And the Deputy Assistant Secretary this year was, last year was Brian Montgomery. We met with him several times and he liked our ideas, and I think we got a lot of stuff taken care of through him. We never met with Ben Carson because he was never available. But Brian was very instrumental in helping us to get some things through. Now, our accountability sections we have at our conference every year in June. And that's another way that we have the HUD officials there in Washington comes to our conference, which is held in Washington every year, to explain to tenants from around the country that as a part of NAHT. They bring their questions and their questions are answered by the HUD officials, personally by the HUD officials. So that's our way of interacting and bringing the local and the national together. So we have the HUD officials come to our conference actually to be there to answer these tenants' questions. So Michael, you want to go on with the lobby day?
Well, yeah, just I was going to ask Kyle if he could share just so people see what that looks like. If you could screen share the agenda from the session we had at our conference in June last summer, and also the link in chat if people want to actually view the video. It's a 2-hour long video, but the thing that's unique about this is that the tenants who draw the agenda up, this is done over a period of weeks, sometimes months in our network calls, so that we present to HUD an organized agenda. So it's not just like a town meeting where everybody gets up and says, you know, this is happening in my apartment. It's issues that have been vetted. Tenant groups can bring up things that have are not solvable at the building level or even the local office level. If they meet that test, then we can add it to the agenda here. So we then organize it by topic. And there are tenants from all over the country. So here last summer, we had the first topic was around making communities safe under COVID. So we had a bunch of issues about distributing HUD's brochure in languages, which Joseph Lundy raised from Virginia, getting rid of the minimum rent requirement, which a couple of people raised, further simplifying recertification. If you could scroll down a little bit, Kyle. And then there were other topics like substandard housing. Shalonda Rivers building is a big focus, trying to get results there. Forest Cove in Atlanta. So we did win some things about Forest Cove. HUD agreed to do a pass-through lease, which they're now negotiating in Atlanta, which will protect people and make sure they have a right to return when they do major renovations. And then a little further down, I'll show some other, enforcing the right to organize, getting money out for tenant organizing, and making sure tenants, the last one is getting tenants involved as partners institutionally with HUD's inspection processes for both management and occupancy reviews and REAC inspections. So we have a whole, these are recommendations that have been developed over a period of years by organizers and tenant leaders from around the country. We form task forces, they come up with these things. And then the board meets regularly, as Jerry explained, with HUD to get this done. And then we push them at the national conference as well. So we've been doing this sort of thing for 25 years. One thing that may not, this NAHT is a membership organization for tenants in privately owned subsidized housing, not so much for public housing. Although recently, now that
we'll talk about that in our next
yeah,
segment, if you don't
okay,
mind.
yeah. So, but historically, up till now, NAHT is primarily for project-based Section 8 or HUD mortgage buildings that are privately owned, subsidized by HUD, and it's a union for those groups. So when groups move into private ownership from public housing, they can join too. So I think that's. And then there's a link you can actually watch the entire video of. So we've won a lot of things over the years, like the whole framework of the right to organize came from NAHT, a lot of preservation policies and so on through this dialogue with HUD.
Since we're talking about the things that we won, Kyle, we wanted to let you know also that in 2019, 2020, just recently, there was a flyer that went out, and it was about the tenants' right under COVID-19. And we got HUD to do those flyers in 4 different languages to be sent out to the tenants. And also NAHT was instrumental in helping the tenants that got the $1,200 stimulus checks and the $600 week from unemployment. That would be excluded from their income and not counted in their rents. We were instrumental in getting that passed through HUD also.
I think Tara was going to talk about some of those things.
No, we got it, Michael. That's it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. So we were instrumental in getting that passed through HUD, and that was a big chunk because a lot of tenants, if you might think that if they had to count that $1,200 plus that $600, they would be paying a whole lot more rents than what they're paying right now. So we were very happy about that.
And that'll save like $1 billion for low-income tenants. Just that one policy that we got HUD to agree to. Otherwise, people had to pay more rent.
Okay, so we're going to move on to I think it's Shalonda.
I think were we going to talk about what we've done over the years on Capitol Hill, Jerry?
Go ahead, Michael. You can start.
Well, in addition to the dialogue with HUD, we've also had a dialogue with Capitol Hill going back to the beginning. Because we have a national network that meets every couple of weeks, we can orchestrate lobbying campaigns through our local affiliates, both the tenant groups and the organizing groups. We have associate member groups that are organizing groups at the city or state level, like New York Tenants and Neighbors in New York, or the Greater Syracuse Tenants Network in Syracuse, or the Texas Tenant Union in Texas. We have groups like that we work with too. They are also members. They don't have voting rights. They participate, but they don't have, only the board members and the elected, the member groups and the board members have voting rights in that. But we can move flexibly to orchestrate lobbying campaigns. So we have, over the years, NAHT has been instrumental in blocking budget cuts, especially to the voucher program in the 2000s, and several times we've prevented that from happening. We won $1 billion in the 90s for housing preservation. And in 2012, we won 2 amendments that protected about 60,000 tenants who were otherwise at risk. The Low Income Housing Coalition recognized the Mass Alliance of HUD Tenants, really NAHT, for winning that in 2012. So we can do that sort of thing. And you want to talk about what we've done this year on that, Jerry? Or
I wanted to piggyback on what you were saying a few minutes ago about some of our wins. And another win we had was with the VISTA program, the Volunteer and Service to America program, which NAHT won in 2014 and is still ongoing. It just restarted here about 2 months ago, where affiliates was able to get vistas for their organizations and to help to try to save homes for people that owners that is about to opt out of the program or whatever, try to get them to stay in the program. The people that we're looking at buildings that's opting out, let's say like within the next 5 years. So those vistas was very instrumental in going and helping them to develop tenant association in order to help them to save their homes. And with that being said, we have another program that we're just waiting on approval for, but we don't know yet. And that will be another VISTA program without any monies coming to the organizers. But it's kind of complicated right now, but we're still working out the logistics, and we're looking forward to continuing this VISTA program. And they asked us to save over, I think it was 12,000 a year. And we were instrumental in saving over 60,000 within the 3 year, 30,000 within the 3 year period. We were able to save that many homes, and the total was 60,000 homes altogether with this new VISTA program that we started in 2014. So we are very proud of that. And we're looking forward to continuing the VISTA project and asking for more money in that project, which we'll talk about a little later. And it's called, we're trying to look for money in the 514. We'll talk about that a little later. I think Tara will cover that. Okay.
Well, we were speaking of some of the accomplishments that have taken place through the advocacy and the organized lobbying. And from our local affiliate here in Chicago, a task force was formed at an annual conference of NAHT by the groups meeting and having similar and like situations. This was about the safety of building owners. And it was a large developer, and there was several dangerous issues with this property. And with the task force being formed at the NAHT conference and considered and consisting of different members, they from Chicago, California, and others that were there, we actually got some real changes in the REACT scoring. How they look at properties during it's called REACT, it's the real estate assessment. Am I correct, Jerry? Real estate assessment center. How they score your properties when you say they received a score on inspection. So with these changes that was advocated by this task force, HUD actually made changes to their policies that were posted on their website in December of 2019. Just about the last time we were out there as a group. As you said, we do some lobbying out on Capitol Hill as well. And tenants come along. I'm a tenant that came along and was able to participate actually in these hearings and speaking to these officials and many of these developers. So as we grow in the future, we do have to raise our voice, and we do have changes that we can make as a group together. So that's one of the greatest accomplishments since I've been on the board, and I've been there 2 years, besides the ones that Michael and Jerry has also mentioned. And I see that we have some more things to accomplish, and we'll work to get those done.
Shalonda, are you ready?
Yes. Okay, so I will be speaking about the NAHT Tenant Empowerment Bill reforms not winnable with HUD alone. So some of the things is rent withholding and substandard housing triggering a HUD action. Now this particular part, it pretty much a tenant association will have the right to withhold their rent in escrow, and HUD will withhold its subsidy. This will allow a tenant association in the building to trigger off a REACT inspection or MOR if the score is 60 or below. As Michael stated earlier, such as my building where I live, many issues with the conditions here. Now, one of the things that I like to stress in this area or this particular part is that this tenant empowerment bill, is not for good owners. It's just for, I don't even want to say bad owners, but owners that are not keeping up with their buildings, right? It's just in such deplorable conditions. So that is one of the biggest things with the tenant empowerment bill. The next thing will be national repair and deduct in Section 8 housing. This will allow tenants the right to repair and deduct from the rent. So, of course it can't be nothing like outrageous. It has to be something in a reasonable amount. So if you repair something as minor as a hole in your wall, just because a rat chewed through it, and you need the money, or you're repairing that item, because if you call your landlord, often this happens here in my complex, you could call in the rental office and you tell them the situation. And a lot of times what's not happening is they're not inputting these work orders in the systems. And so a lot of times it's not even being attended to, or even if they put it in, it might take them 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then they forget it's there. Even residents here have to wait 6 months or longer for repairs. So this just basically will allow a resident to repair and deduct that funds from their rent. Also, the tenant right to trigger a REACT or MOR inspections, access to information. Access to information will allow legitimate tenant organizations under 24 CFR Part 245 to obtain through Freedom of Information Act, usually known as FOA, request information regarding ownership and management, HUD contracts, use of agreements, annual operating budgets, REACT, and MOR reports. So such things as that, access to information. One of the things is when we say access to information, such as the landlords know they supposed to post once there is an inspection. They know they supposed to post. This is a rule that HUD has in place. They supposed to post it in the rental office for the residents to see it. And I believe the time frame is 60 days. Am I correct, Michael? For 60 days?
Yeah, they're supposed to post the score and then make the report available in the management office. It almost never happens.
Correct.
But that's what the rule was, yeah.
Yes. So a lot of times that is not happening. So that's what that part will cover, something of that. And also third-party enforcement, tenants' rights to sue to enforce HUD contracts, tenant participation in REACT inspections, and also to get the 10 million year out for tenant organizing, which is the Section 514 funds. And I believe Ms. Tara or Ms. Geraldine is going to speak on that part. Is there anything else that I'm missing, Michael or Jerry, that you all?
No, that's
Back on what you just said, Shalonda, was that
Thank you.
when we're asking in the tenant empowerment bill that the tenants be able to withhold their rent, like Shalonda said, in escrow, and for HUD to withhold their subsidy. And this is only for landlords and owners that has below 60 rating as far as the REACT score is concerned. We're not penalizing all landlords or owners. We just want the landlords and the owners that's having these tenants live in all of these deplorable conditions, like Michael mentioned earlier, Forest Cove, deplorable. And the word deplorable doesn't even fit what we saw when we went to Atlanta. So we want to hold them accountable, and this bill will tighten up the things that HUD they already have the right to withhold their subsidy, but they're not doing it. So we just want to put this bill out, and we want them to know that, you already have this in your rules and your regulations as far as tenants are concerned, but they're not adhering to it. So we want to stiffen it to make sure that HUD do what they're supposed to do. And also with the changes for as having the owners accountable with civil monetary penalties, because a lot of time these tenants are in these deplorable conditions, and we keep going back and forth with them to saying that with the right to organize, tenants don't have the right to organize. So that's when they go and tell the tenants, you cannot have a meeting today, but HUD says you can. So when they say you cannot have a meeting, we want to hold that owner accountable. We want to have them penalized for telling these tenants that, you don't have the right to have a meeting. So that's part, we want to stiffen this bill. And right now, Michael's going to finish it up, but this bill is going to be put to a vote pretty soon. And we're looking forward to having it passed, because we still got a lot of fight ahead of us. So we'll be counting on the National Income Coalition to help us get this bill passed.
Thank you. And can I just say this really quick in reference to one of the things Ms. Geraldine just said about landlords telling residents they can't meet. Myself here as a tenant organizer and assisting residents in my community, I received a phone call, and this is last year sometime, by some residents having an issue in the community. And I said, well, the only way that I will help you at this point is you all have to become organized. So they agreed to become organized. I introduced myself to management. I told them who I was. I gave them all of my contact. I asked them, could we please use the community room to have this tenant meeting? They agreed. They, opened it up. They even told the police officer. And when I got there, lo and behold, and I made it very clear in the email that no staff from management cannot participate in the meeting. I made it very clear in the email. However, they had the staff there, and thank God I had invited an attorney from legal service. I invited some civil rights organizations. They came. There was a big thing. The manager wanted to kick us out. She put me on the trespassing list, and they were wrong. And bottom line, HUD did not give them a penalty for it. All they said is that we could go through mediation, and they agreed that they would not interfere with the tenants' rights to organize no more. But we had to get the police to kick them out of the meeting, knowing that they were not supposed to be in the meetings. But this thing was already set and planned ahead of time. And I gave them the HUD rule, so they knew ahead of time. But these are the things that we are faced with out here as assisting other residents to organize. So, the 514 money is, so important. So thank you.
I think one thing to make clear, I'm not sure we made it clear. the tenant empowerment bill is a proposal at this point. It's not a law. It's something that we've been developing really for 20 years. It was introduced in 2010 by Barney Frank and others, and Maxine Waters, and it actually got out of the committee, and it was going to be voted on the House, and then the Republicans won control of the House, so we had to shelve it for 10 years. And we pulled it off the shelf in the last couple of years and updated it. So all the things that Shalonda read off are the components of that bill. And what they all have in common is empowering organizations of residents and tenants as individuals as well to be able to get power in their development, to get results from HUD, to get conditions fixed, and to get money out for tenant organizing groups distributed to local organizing groups around the country. That's what the Section 514 money is about. So all of this is about empowering residents through the organizing the unorganized tenants into tenant unions locally, and building power through structures like NAHT and these regional and national eyes and ears meetings with HUD, so that we can get results in a systematic way. So that's what the tenant empowerment bill is. Shalonda and Jerry Collins testified before Congress a year ago, and Tara was part of, we had a follow-up roundtable meeting with representatives of owner groups who were not happy with these provisions, trying to get their support. So it's been a work in progress. We expect it to be filed sometime in the next month, and we'll be looking for your help, everybody, to line up co-sponsors on Capitol Hill by going to your member of Congress and asking them to sign on to this bill once it's filed. So we're hoping it's going to be this month, and then we're going to try to get it passed.
Kyle, we wanted to let the public housing tenants, if they're public housing tenants on this call, which I know there are, we want them to know too that, you know, since some of their buildings are converting to RAD, that they can become a part of the National Alliance of HUD Tenants organization also, because now it's privatized. So now you have the same rights that people living in project-based Section 8 have. You have the right to be independent of management, have your own tenant association meetings and everything like that. So we just wanted to put that out there now that they are having the privatization of the public housing.
Do you have a link to somewhere where people can plug in with you all easily?
Well, there's our website, which is saveourhomes.org. There's information there about how an organizing committee, doesn't have to be an elected group, but just an organizing committee, as long as they're independent of owners and management.
Just put it in the chat. It's
Join,
just put in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, they can join there. There's a join page, and it gives our bylaws. It gives how to join. There's a PayPal link for the dues, which are nominal $25 per group per year. And then we ask people to send us their list of committee or board members and emails, and we'll add all of their email addresses to our national listserv for the bi-weekly calls and other meetings.
Last but not least, Kyle, one last thing we want to leave with you is that with engaging with the HUD team that's about to come on, our first order of business, as soon as Marsha Fudge gets confirmed, is that we're setting up a meeting with her. And we also have sent ahead recommendations that we've already had in place, like Michael said, for all these years. We've had a lot of recommendations that we've sent to HUD, and it fell on deaf ears. So with this new administration, we look forward to having this conversation with her, and we're looking forward to sending some of our questions to some of the tenants that we have in different states that have communication with their senators. So we're looking forward to talking with them and having the senators in a different state to ask them some questions about the recommendation and how she feels about it. So that's our main goal right now, as far as engaging with the new HUD secretary coming on. Thank you so much.
Kyle, could you share, we had a memo, a transition memo that NAHT developed that's our own, or, memo to the transition team for Biden.
Yep.
And we wanted to share that with everybody. If you could post that and the link to that and chat. I see somebody's posted the Low Income Housing Coalition's excellent recommendations. So they have their separate, for their organization. So NAHT has ones that are just focused on HUD tenants, and it's mostly about empowerment of tenants institutionally through the tenant empowerment bill, through getting that 514 money out so people can organize, through making sure that tenants can participate in REAC and management and occupancy review inspections when they come out to your building, that you could go along with them and meet with you instead of not meeting with you. So those are all recommendations that we've broken down. There's also some longer term recommendations for our vision for, funding universal vouchers for everybody who needs them and building new housing. Those are very similar to the low income housing recommendations for long-term legislation. So that's something to share. When Marcia Fudge will need to be confirmed by the Senate Banking Committee. So there will be a hearing, and it could be in the next month. And what NAHT is going to do is contact members of the Banking Committee, where we have membership, and ask them to raise questions in those hearings to get a commitment from Marcia Fudge that she's going to support our vision and agenda for tenant empowerment to, finally get that money. They've been sitting on this money for 20 years.
Yeah.
They just haven't gotten it out. And it would make a huge difference if it was 10 million a year for tenant organizing. So we want her to do that, but we have to get her on record in the public hearing that you'll all be able to watch, to get to say, yes, I'm going to meet with the NAHT board. I'm going to, get this money out so we can organize the unorganized. So that kind of thing. And that's something that others can do too. But we're going to try to do it through our affiliates and board members that have a relationship with members of the banking committee, like in Virginia, Massachusetts, Ohio, Minnesota. So we have some folks who will be able to raise that and hopefully get a commitment. And then later, once she's confirmed, she'll be able to meet with people. They won't allow her to meet with people until she's confirmed by the Senate. So the way we get in there is through the committee hearing. And then later we'll try to meet with her, and then we'll continue to meet with all the other people that they bring in, as we've been doing for 25 years, until we get some real results along these lines.
Kyle, could you put the recommendations that we sent to you? Could you put them in the chat, because someone just asked about what Michael was talking about? I just saw.
Yeah. So
okay.
I'm not sure if I can share files on a webinar. I just asked my colleague Olivia if she knows anything about this, or Tori. If there's a way you can share a file in the chat, because it's not letting me. But I can share it after.
Okay. Yeah.
I do a follow-up email.
That'll be fine. So
Okay.
now we're ready. I think if there's any questions that you want to ask us or whatever, we don't want to take up more of your time.
No, you are the main event, so no worries about that. So actually, Tara answered somebody's question, and I think this was a good one. What section, or what 514 was, and that's the funding for tenant organizing. And I think you all mentioned that several times. Mm-hmm. So that's basically it, right? That's just.
It's a provision of the Housing Act of 97, section 514. It allows the Secretary of HUD to spend up to $10 million annually out of the project-based Section 8 funding account appropriations, which is like 14 billion a year. So 10 million out of 14 billion is minuscule. So it wouldn't even show up. It's not an appropriation. It's a set aside of the appropriation that always happens. And they just haven't done it. They've done it like 13 million since the year 2000. And they had 10 million a year. It could have been 200 million. So think of if there had been 200 million for tenant organizing over the last 20 years, you would have millions of, you'd have tens of thousands of organized tenant groups all over the country, and you'd have, coalitions of groups in every city, and you'd have tenant run coalitions in every city, and you'd have, organizers, many of whom would be tenants themselves, organizing unorganized tenants in their community. That's our vision. But HUD won't get the money out up till now. So that's, we even have a song. We have a song on Section 514 that we sang a few times. But, we're going to push again to get that to happen. It's in the statute, but they just won't spend the money. They haven't yet.
All right, looked like you might have something you wanted to add to that. Or...
Well, I was going to say yes, because, tenant organizing, as we know, is volunteer work when we begin. But there are just, in some instances, you do need that support from HUD. You must have it because the relationship is really vital. Because as the campaign that President Collins was talking about, the eyes and ears, we are the ones that is best to discuss what is actually happening on the ground. We both share the same goals, maintaining and preserving affordable housing. And when you start to get into dealing with a lot of private owners, that's when you find that the investor is not invested in maintaining affordable housing. They're interested in profiting off of it. So as Michael mentioned, we speak with these groups at yearly when we hold our conference, and to try to work out this relationship. And we talk with them. They're part of this conversation too. So these are, we're trying to promote healthy relationships between ourselves, the tenants, with the HUD officials, and with the property owners. Because we do have one goal in mind, and that is saving and maintaining affordable housing and making it more accessible to people. And sometimes profit gets in the way of that. So we work really hard, like I said, to talking with HUD officials about the really concrete things that matter. How is my home being maintained? How are you maintaining your property? Because for sure, they're making money, these developers. They're not doing it just to do it. They do make money. So how are they also investing in this as well as a social issue? So the more conversations that we have and the more support, the more voices that they hear, it continues to make changes possible. So I welcome any of you who have asked on this call tonight about how to reach a NAHT or to find out more. And I put in the chat box at saveourhomes.org. And you can see a lot of the accomplishment and memberships and things that's taking place. And I welcome local organizations and associate member groups to join us in this fight for housing justice.
Great.
Zachary, I just saw something that you put in the chat a few minutes ago. We all are part of the National Alliance of HUD Tenants. I'm the president, Geraldine Collins. Michael Kane is our only employee. He's our executive director. Tara is one of my vice president of the North, and Shalonda Rivers is another board member, and she's also a board member for the National Low Income Housing Coalition. So I just wanted to verify we're all on one organization. And one thing I forgot to mention, Kyle, was about the Inspire program. This is the new program that it's under REACT, and the way they're going to do the new inspections. And in 2019, DJ LaVoy was the then part of the REACT. I gotta laugh at this one because he was the director of the REACT back in 2019. So he comes to our conference and he starts showing us, something and telling us this is the way REACT is gonna look. And before he got there, we had already read up on this new Inspire model. So when he got up to talk, I just said to him, it's self-certification. The owners will be self-certified. And we could not see at NAHT a building certifying themselves and saying everything is fine and HUD is just going to go along with it. So when he said that, I think he got teamed up with a lot of people. And at the end of after everything was over, we found out that they had got rid of him. But anyway, I think they sent him someplace else, but that's where he needs to be. But over the years, he has never listened to one single thing that NAHT brought as far as recommendations. Now, NAHT was able to, they brought us to the table again and we tried to help advocate on behalf of low-income tenants, not only project-based Section 8, but public housing tenants as well. And they wanted us to tell them what do we see as trying to help them to solve certain problems that's not working well in HUD. So the ideas that we brought to them, we don't know whether or not they're gonna use them, but we were instrumental in giving them our thoughts. And I think within the next month or so, we should see what they come up with, and then tenants will have the right to comment on what this Inspire model is going to look like. But with what's going on, I don't know how it's going to look, but some of the ideas they have is ridiculous. But we just wait and everybody can comment on it once it comes out. So that's, what I want to say about REACT.
Great. Just for the sake of time, I was going to go through some other questions. And this one, you probably could speak on it for a very long time, but if you could just give maybe some examples of some challenges that you've had. I also put into the chat our link to our advocates guide about lobbying as a 501c3. But Michael, Tara, Jerry, Shalonda, if any of you want to talk about any issues as a tenant organization who's a 501c3, any issues you had lobbying as that or doing advocacy with that status?
Well, first of all, 501c3s can do limited lobbying.
Right.
So that is perfectly legitimate. You cannot endorse or oppose candidates in public office. And there are some other restrictions on certain kinds of advocacy, but it's totally legal to do some lobbying around legislation. And also advocacy with HUD. So that shouldn't be a barrier. Most tenant groups at the building level don't incorporate and get a 501c3 letter from the IRS. Some do, especially groups that move on to resident controlled ownership of some kind. But that's much more rare, and they don't have to. I mean, a tenant group is an unincorporated association that is a legal entity. They have the right to organize. They have the right to speak up. They have the right to talk to HUD, and they're members of Congress. So that's for building groups at the building level. And then all of the NAHT affiliates are nonprofit organizations. So they also can lobby, and we do. Is that, are there any other, there was a question about Ward 6 in DC. Are there any housing groups there that are members? I don't think we have at the moment any groups.
No, we don't have anybody in
but we do have an affiliate in DC that we work with called Empower DC, and they do some very good organizing, primarily in public housing, and we have just worked out. They're an associate member of NAHT in Washington, so we're hoping to get resources to them through the VISTA program, so that they'll be able to organize unorganized tenants, including public housing tenants, in DC.
We are affiliated with a group in DC called Museum Square.
That's a member, right? That's
member group. That's a member group of NAHT in Washington.
That could be. Is that Ward 6, Jerry? Do you know? Christopher, is that Ward 6? I don't know. It's Museum Square on New York. I think it's New York Avenue.
It's in Chinatown, near Chinatown.
That might be Ward 2 then. Yeah. I was going to say I've done some work with Empower DC before too. Before I joined NLIHC, just some volunteer work. I know that they saved Berry Farm, which was a very big deal when that happened. Yeah, thanks for getting to. I was going to actually point out Chris's question, so thanks for getting to that. Let's see.
The Museum Square is a big. We've had two or three national rallies that we brought people from all over the country to support them in their struggle. They're trying
Is that the one Is it next to a shelter? Is it the Patricia Handy shelter next door to it? I believe. I can't
I
remember.
don't think so. It's near
Okay.
Busboys and Poets in that part of,
Oh yeah,
it's
Yeah.
around the corner from Busboys and Poets, actually.
I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah, and it's a kind of a high rise. Well, it's the last, I think one of only 2 subsidized housing developments left in Chinatown
Mhm.
that are actually affordable to low income people of Asian Chinese descent.
Yep. Zachary Rowe asked if you have any member or associate groups in Detroit, Michigan.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Our associate member group there is
Matter of fact, we have a Vista, the new Vista program. We have a Vista that's in Detroit. That's a part of our program. And I recognize another name, and I'd like to shout her out, Christina Tyler from Syracuse. She is a Vista with NAHT also.
Mhm.
And another person I want to shout out, Mr. Joseph Lundy. He's a board member and he's on this call also. So thank them for joining.
Thank you. I had a few questions, just a quick one. I was wondering, when you're organizing, what issues you face with like recruiting your neighbors. So I guess like apathy, how you get around that. I'm sure, plenty of people think, DC so far away, especially if they don't live near DC so far away, or even if they're organizing locally, my demands aren't going to be listened to. How you navigate something like that.
Did you say, can I ask a question? Did you say apathy?
Apathy, like
Apathy, okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Geraldine. I just want to see
That's
what he
why,
said.
Kyle, we do the bi-weekly calls
okay,
so that our affiliates and any member that was part of that, associate, whatever, they can be part of the conversation so that we, develop task force if someone is having a problem around the landlord that they have, and we find out that in different states, like we have a big task force going on right now, and we're looking for properties that people that live with related properties. There's a big task force that NAT has going on right now, and we like to welcome anyone that wants to join that task force. We'd like to have you on that call every other week. So
and, Kyle, are you asking people at the building level tips for how to get people?
yeah.
the building level.
Well,
But also what Geraldine said was really helpful too. That was helpful. But Tara, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I would say at the building level, you said it is difficult because you weigh whether you need 100% participation or what will be representative of the tenant population.
Right.
When you're talking about everybody being evenly representative and voices being heard.
Right.
So we discuss this, as you said, monthly. We have our board meeting. So this is an ongoing conversation across the nation.
Right.
It's not, no one needs to feel it's only happening in their particular situation, because there are different needs, family demands that take preference over being available to meet at a particular date and time.
Mhm.
And that's been the biggest change as I've seen the evolution of tenant organizations starting in public housing in Chicago, was that when you had individuals that were basically volunteering 25, 30 hours or more engaged in this. And then as generations went on and more individuals entered the workforce, the work hours, children, then it becomes of how can we form and have conversations, across what varies, a tenant's availability. So right now, I think you just begin with the first one. You have a group, and whether it's an elected board or a representative group, who is still engaging those that aren't available. You can't say that to individuals, okay, you don't attend a meeting, so we can't include you in the conversation. You still have to be knowing that you're representing an entire tenancy and that you still keep yourself engaged with that tenancy. But those that are able to physically be present more than others and contribute that labor, then you guys carry on. and you just lead by example and trust others that are inspired to do the same thing will come along too, you know. So and there's a common cause. You got to know what you're organizing around.
And a good president of a tenant association, they will keep those tenants informed. And how we keep our tenants informed is that if we come to your conference, Kyle, and I bring back information, I share it with every tenant in the building. So when they read it, it's knowledge to them. So they get more interested sometime as they read certain documents and stuff. And that's how you can empower them to say, become and stay a part of the tenant association by giving them, you know, stuff to read all the time, and just to engage them in certain aspects of saying, we need your support in this building. So make them worthy and make them feel like, you know, everybody can do something. Everybody can do something. So you have to keep them engaged in certain ways, and you got to just keep coming up with ideas. And I just want to answer this question right quick because I see we're almost out of time. There was a question by Esther that said, do tenants fear retaliation every single day? Yes, we do. We fear retaliation, but if you go to your HUD rule book and you look at the federal guidelines of what protects you as far as the right to organize, whoever is trying to do whatever to you, I would send them a letter and saying, this is what HUD said I have the right to do. Put it in front of their faces and don't let anybody pull you back from anything. Because my thing is, and I'm gonna stop, housing is a human right. Everybody should have housing. No one, wherever you live, I don't care, public, private, or project-based, everybody is entitled to housing. And as I say again, housing is a human right. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. Fortunately, I think we are out of time. If anyone has any further questions, please feel free to email me and I'll pass them along to Nat. Make sure you get your question answered. I wanted to end today just by referring to the new COVID relief package that President Trump signed over the holiday break. There is $25 billion in rental assistance included in this package, which we're very happy about. This funding is meant for people that are 80% or below. The funds must be used for households for people below 80% AMI and prioritizing people that are below 50%. We're still working through the guidance that we want to give to HUD on how to distribute that money, because we know that that was an issue last year with, you know, just an archaic network of different organizations handling the money, and it was hard to access. So we're working really hard right now to try and figure out the best way that the money can get into the hands of tenants, especially those in need. And on that note, I will also mention that landlords can apply on behalf of tenants for this rental assistance, but tenants have to certify that application of the landlord, which is a good thing, obviously, because we don't want landlords just asking for rental assistance when they don't need it, especially. And so I'll share the link to our fact sheet on the provisions.
And that was a tremendous achievement with the Low Income Housing Coalition really led. You know, we supported that effort by tenants, but it was really a broad coalition and an incredible achievement to win $25 billion for emergency rental assistance in out of this Congress.
And I will say that we are not done, because
but we want more.
Yeah, the eviction moratorium was extended to the end of this month, but we want that to go much, much longer. And we also want more rental assistance. So we're urging the Biden administration to consider both these things. And I'll share, we have a link to where you can send a letter to the Biden administration asking them to do both these things. So I'll share that right now.
That we will definitely support you and helping to send a letter to them also, Kyle.
Yep. So I think that's about all I have. This has been great. Thank you so much, Nat.
So much for inviting us.
You all joining. I think this has been great and inspiring to a lot of people. Please always feel free to come back to Tenant Talk Live. It's every Monday, the first Monday of every month. We'd love to have you. Love your input and all that. So Thanks again, and thank you for attending, everyone. We will see you in February.
Thank you, Kyle. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everyone.